I'm a huge fan of the HBO show Succession. That's a blueprint for what not to do in planning for succession. Michael is going to show us the blueprint for what to do. Welcome everyone to TTA's six-part webinar series, Mastering Business Essentials. Today, we've got an interesting one. Michael DeSiato is going to talk to us about succession. You're not going to own your business forever, so how do you handle that? I want to point out that this webinar series is sponsored by Bambi, which is the most stupidly easy to use AI-powered NEMT dispatch and scheduling software. And in case you're not a member of the TTA, as I always like to point out at the beginning, here's 4 really compelling reasons about why you should become a TTA member. Number 1, you get access to educational resources and industry insights like this webinar with Michael DeSiato. So you get to stay ahead of the curve with access to these webinars, seminars, training sessions, newsletters, reports, publications, all that good stuff. Number 2, advocacy and representation. The TTA has already built advocacy channels with the government to basically talk about things that we care about as an industry, and your voice gets to be heard directly in those channels that the TTA has built with the government. Number 3, networking events. So you get to connect with industry leaders, experts, and fellow members at conferences like the TTA Mobilize Conference, which this year is at Paris, Las Vegas. Who doesn't want to come to that? And fourth and finally, you get member discounts on everything that I just mentioned. So with that, Michael DeSiato is going to talk to us about the succession matrix, the blueprint for succession success. As I mentioned, you're not going to own your business forever, and you got to plan for that. I'm a huge fan of the HBO show Succession. That's a blueprint for what not to do in planning for succession. Michael is going to show us the blueprint for what to do. So Michael, over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And by the way, talking about TV shows, I'm laughing because before we came on today, I don't know if anyone watches Showtime, but I am not the Michael DeSiato of Your Honor fame. Okay, so I'm not that guy. But it's amazing how they got my name for that show. But anyway, well, thank you again. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, the Transportation Alliance, for allowing me the opportunity to talk to you guys today about succession planning and why it's so important for you as a business owner. As stated previously, my name is Mike DeSiato, not Your Honor, not the guy on the Showtime show. But as you can see here on the slide here, I call myself the 5C guy. I have 5 C credentials after my name. I'm a CPA. I'm a recovering CPA, but I still am a CPA. But all the other credentials really relate to succession and exit planning. And that's what I do now. After spending 40 years in the world of public accounting, I now devote 100% of my time as an exit/succession planner, helping business owners like yourself handle probably what I like to call one of the most important financial events in your life, and that being the successful transition of your business to the next generation of owners. And I like to tell you, and I like to say that most owners only have one shot at getting this thing right, this succession issue right. And my goal and my passion is to make sure that your one shot is your best shot. So what is succession planning? What are we talking about here? Well, at a very high level, business succession is really nothing more than the continuation of the success of your business through the next generation of owners and managers in light of the predictable, probable, and possible issues impacting the continuation of that success. And we'll get into those issues as we get into the program here. So why is it so important? Why is it so important that we deal with and you should be looking at succession planning? Well, I'm apt not to do this very often, but I'm going to throw some statistics at you, right? Because they are important here. So the statistics around successful business transfers to the next generation of business owners highlight the challenges and the complexities involved in succession planning with family-owned businesses. For example, the failure rate here is astounding, right? Research shows that approximately 70% of family-owned businesses do not survive the transition from the first generation to the second generation. So stated differently, only 30% of these successions are successful, okay? And so that statistic reflects a significant challenge that arises during succession. And then the numbers get worse when you go down to the third generation, right? When you get down to the third generation, only 10 to 15% of family businesses successfully make it to the third generation. Again, this sharp decline underscores the increasing difficulties in maintaining a family business over time. Now, if you're not a family business, if you're not family owned, well, the success rates do improve. They go from about 30% to maybe 50 to 60%, but that's really not encouraging as far as I'm concerned. That's still an unacceptable failure rate by any measure. So that's why it's important for us and for you to start focusing on succession planning. Now, why is there such a failure? What's causing these rates, these failure rates? Well, there's several factors, but the number one reason, the overwhelming reason, is due to a lack of planning, okay? And a significant number of business owners do not have a formal succession plan in place. According to various studies and surveys, about 60% of owners have not documented a plan for transferring their business. That to me is kind of shocking, okay? That's the major reason. Now, there are some other issues, reasons around why there's failure in succession. One of them has to do with family dynamics. So in a family business situation, you have issues that are related to family relationships that can complicate succession. You have conflicts, you have differing aspirations among family members. You also have unclear roles that often lead to disputes that can jeopardize your business. And the other major reason is inadequate training. Many successors are not adequately prepared for leadership roles. Okay, a survey found that only 30% of family businesses provide training for the next generation, which can result in successors lacking the necessary skills to run the company effectively. So what are the benefits of succession planning? We talked about failure rates. We talked about why it's important. Why is it important? What are the benefits of doing it? Okay. Well, again, businesses that engage proactively in succession planning are more likely to succeed. Research indicates that those with a formal succession plan are twice as likely to succeed in their transition compared to those who don't have one. Okay. The other reason, and one of the benefits, the second benefit of doing this planning is that businesses that prepare for succession often achieve high evaluations. Proper planning often leads to an increase in the business's marketing value or marketable value by up to 30% by addressing potential operational and financial inefficiencies prior to a transfer. And finally, a well-structured plan can also help minimize tax liabilities, ensuring that more of the business value is preserved to the next generation. And being a CPA and having been a tax partner for years, I often tell clients, look, you have a choice about the amount of tax you pay. And I tell people, you can pay zero. You can pay anywhere from 0 to over 50%. Okay, you can. And we're not going to talk about how that happens in this webinar, but you have a choice here. And planning is very essential in order to minimize those tax liabilities. And there are additional benefits, all right? In addition to those, business succession planning is good for these reasons. These are the other benefits surrounding good succession planning. A good succession plan ensures that your business can survive through disruption, all right? It's not about just recovering. It's about protecting your people, your profits, and purpose when things go wrong, okay? So we were talking before I came on this webinar today about, contingency planning. What if tomorrow you can't go to work? What if, God forbid, you get run over by the proverbial bus? and you're dead. You can't, unfortunately, you can't go back to the office. All right. Well, doing this succession planning will ensure that you're going to put in place plans, procedures, and tools so that your business can survive through a disruption like this, right? The other good thing that business succession planning will do for you, it's going to help preserve your business value by ensuring that leadership transitions, whether planned for or unexpected, do not disrupt the company's operations, strategic direction, or stakeholder confidence. It's a proactive approach that prepares the business to continue growing and performing, even when your key people leave. Good succession planning also protects your family's interests by ensuring that the business remains stable, valuable, and aligned with the family's long-term goals across generations. It helps avoid internal conflict, preserves wealth, and upholds the legacy and reputation of the family that they have built over time. Good succession planning also helps you, the owner, plan for your retirement by giving you a clear strategic pathway to exit the business on your terms, financially, operationally, and emotionally. It ensures that the company can thrive without you, enabling a smooth transition of leadership and ownership while preserving the value that you've built. Good succession planning also directly supports talent development by identifying future leaders early and providing them with the training, mentorship, and growth opportunities they need to succeed. Rather than reacting to leadership vacancies, it proactively builds a pipeline of ready, capable individuals aligned with the company's long-term strategy. And finally, a good succession plan helps you manage risk and uncertainty by preparing the organization for leadership transitions, planned for or unplanned for, so that the business remains stable, valuable, and operational, regardless of what happens. It's essentially a strategic risk management tool for leadership continuity. Okay, so those are the benefits of doing all this stuff and why it's important. But I'll move on now to what I feel is a very important point here, and that's this slide here. Okay, this is my "it takes a team" slide. Okay, given all these things and all these goals that succession planning is trying to accomplish, it's a succession planning imperative that all of your key professionals be involved in this process. I like to call this, and I used to say, and I say this all the time, succession planning is a team sport. Okay, we're going to find as we go through this, as I go through the matrix with you, there are a multitude of issues that need to be addressed in developing a succession plan. And there is no one professional who has all the answers. And as such, the succession planning process requires collaboration amongst your business owners, you, the business owners, amongst your various advisors, led usually by a trained succession planner, preferably leading the team towards your goals. And that's the way this is the ideal way that this process should happen. Now, when I tell owners that, they say to me, "Hey, Mike, that sounds great, but boy, isn't this going to be expensive? You're telling me I have to have my CPA, my lawyer, my wealth manager, my other advisors, not to mention someone like you who's an exit/succession planner, all of you guys on the clock. Isn't that going to cost me some money? Isn't that going to cost me a lot? Do we really need all these people?" And I tell them, look, from my experience, that kind of thinking is a trap and a recipe for disaster. Okay, because without the multiple perspectives and the active debate between and amongst your advisors on these important issues surrounding your succession plan, you, the business owner, become vulnerable to poor advice from underperforming, underprepared, and isolated advisors. Okay, so don't try to save fees by cutting your advisors out of the process, because it often leads to costly oversights that far outweigh any money you're going to save in fees. So again, I'll say it one more time. This exercise, this process is a team sport. Okay, don't try to avoid paying professional fees, because that's being a pound foolish and a dollar wise and a pound foolish, or a pound foolish and a dollar wise. I probably got that backwards, but you know what I'm talking about. All right, I'll come back to that again. Let's move on to what is necessary in order to have, what are the things you need to focus on in order to have a successful succession plan? So through an extensive national research and study program, the organizers of the International Succession Planning Association, of which I am a member, with combined experiences of over 200 years in working with more than 2,500 family and closely held businesses, have identified these 10 criteria for achieving succession success. Okay, these 10 interdependent factors as a body are referred to as the succession matrix. Okay, oh, sorry, let me go back. So these factors are the predictable challenges that are going to impact the continuity of your business through the next generation of ownership. So let me just read them, and then we're going to do a broad overview of each one. Okay, these 10 factors are, number one, reading from top, going from left to right, owner motivation and perspective. Your motivation, your perspective are important. Number two is personal financial planning. Number three is business structuring. Number four is business performance. Number five is strategic planning. Number six is leadership and management continuity. Number seven is management synergy and teamwork. Number eight is successor preparation. Number nine is family dynamics, if you're family owned. And number 10, if you're family owned, is family governance. Okay. These factors are, as I said, interdependent. Any one factor can significantly handicap the probability that a business can achieve success. Also, extraordinary strengths in some of them, some of them can support weaknesses in others. However, if you have a shortfall in multiple factors, that's going to require some very robust planning and action to give you the confidence that your business can continue on to the next generation. If anyone's interested, and I'll offer this here now, and you have my email address. If you don't have it, you can get it from TTA. But if anyone's interested in assessing where they stand on these 10 factors in this matrix, send me an email, and I'll send you a link for a complimentary assessment of where you would stand in relation to these 10 factors. So let me now go into an overview of these factors and how, and I can spend an hour on each one of them, but trust me, you don't want me to drone on for too long here. But I'll go over them at a very high level, and sure, at the end of the presentation, I'll take some questions around them. So let's go through them and talk about what each one of them means. The first one here is your motivation and your perspective and why that matters, right? So your motivation, your perspective is vital for comprehending how you're going to view the whole succession planning process and what influences your decision about the future of your business. So you need to start thinking and articulating what your goals, your aspirations, your concerns, and your values are, because they're going to shape your approach to this process. So my experience with this is there are many reasons and many motivations that I have seen with owners in approaching this whole process. Some of the motivations I have seen, for instance, is some owners have a desire for legacy. Right? Many of you may wish to preserve your legacy and ensure that your business continues to flourish after your departure. You may wish to pass the business on to your family members or your trusted employees to uphold the vision and values you have established. Or you may be, or it doesn't mean necessarily and, it could be and or, you also may be interested in financial security. You may also want to seek to secure your financial future through a well-crafted succession plan, right? This involves planning for retirement or ensuring you receive equitable compensation when you transition out of your business. And or you also may be motivated by guaranteeing that the business remains sustainable and continues to provide jobs, products, and services in your community. You may also want to prevent the business from failing due to inadequate planning. So, like any other process, any other business planning process, understanding the end game, your goals, your aspirations, your concerns and values are a necessary first step in this process, because those things will have an impact on all future action steps you'll take in this process. The next step here is your personal financial planning, okay? Personal financial planning is very critical here because for you as an owner, because it's going to ensure that your personal and business financial goals are aligned and adequately addressed during the transition of ownership. And here are some of the reasons why personal financial planning is critical as part of your succession plan. Number one, it ensures your financial security. So many business owners plan to use the proceeds from the sale of their business or the income generated from a successful transition as a primary source of retirement income. Your personal financial plan or planning will help you assess whether they have and will have sufficient funds for retirement after succession. The other thing that a personal financial planning helps you do is it helps you and encourages you to make strategic decisions that enhance the value of your business prior to succession. This may include investments in growth, operational efficiencies, or financial restructuring. The other thing that financial planning will do is it'll help you understand the tax implications of succession and develop strategies to minimize your tax liabilities. This is especially important during the sale of a business or when transferring ownership. A succession plan or a financial plan will also help you consider how to protect your personal assets from business liabilities. Proper personal financial planning can help you segregate personal wealth from business risk, which is critical and crucial during a transition. Now, when I talk to owners about personal financial planning, I recommend that they get a professional financial plan done by a qualified professional, CFP, wealth manager, that addresses these issues. And I strongly tell them to resist the urge to do it themselves. Resist the back of the envelope approach with these things. There's no substitute here for a really robust, clear financial plan. You need to have it. Very critical here. The next element here is business structuring. Let's talk a little bit about what I mean by that. Business structuring refers to the process of the way you organize your business in a way that defines its legal structure, its operational framework, and its management hierarchy. Okay? This process is very critical for determining how the business operates, how it's taxed, and how it interacts with the stakeholders, right? So business structuring is important because it lays the foundation of how your business is going to operate, transfer ownership, manage its assets and liabilities, both during and after a transition of leadership. It supports productivity and it's important here because if you do this correctly, it supports productivity by precluding emotional distractions and facilitates shareholder and key manager harmony. This in turn helps develop predictable and profitable and protecting business value. So some of the things that business structuring will help you do is a well-defined structure along with all the agreements surrounding your structure, your shareholders agreements, your operating agreements. It's just going to clarify who owns what and who has decision-making authority within the organization. This is very important in succession planning to ensure that there are no ambiguities about leadership roles when the current owner steps away. Also, business structuring helps in facilitating a smooth transition. Different business structures, C corporations, S corporations, LLCs, partnerships, have various implications of how the ownership can be transferred. So structuring your business effectively can streamline this process. Also, a business structuring has an impact on tax obligations during the succession process. Certain structures may offer tax advantages that can be utilized during a sale or transition of ownership. Also, business structuring can protect personal assets from business liabilities. This is particularly important in succession where the business may take on new risks or liabilities during a transition. Finally, business structuring also plays a critical role in determining a company's ability to access and manage cash flow. The structure of your business, whether it's a sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company, S or C corporation, has an impact on various aspects of cash flow management, including funding options, tax implications, and operational flexibility. So structuring is very important here for the reasons I just articulated. Let's move on to the next element, business performance. Business performance is very fundamental, a very fundamental concept of business succession planning. And the planning here must address business operations and promote an exceptional level of performance. Extraordinary performance helps sustain the business culture and develop successors through the next generation. Now, in my coaching with business owners as a certified value growth advisor, I use this process, this growth drive process. It's built on a system called the 3 dimensions of business growth, with each dimension having 8 objectives. And this process has been proven to show that companies that excel in these dimensions of business growth build strong companies that are, and I like to use the phrase, immortal, right? I want owners to build immortal companies, meaning that they can be passed on from generation to generation, right? With minimal disruption. So we seek to get business immortality by building a strong, dynamic company. So when we talk about building and talk about business performance, I use again this 3 dimensions of business growth framework. And if you follow me on the chart here, moving left to right, the first thing that I tell owners they need to do to get superior performance is you got to produce predictable profits and cash flow, because predictable profits and cash flow are really the launch pad for growth, right? Growth takes a lot of cash, and the business needs to produce it, right? So if you can't produce this, you're not going to be able to grow. So first step here is focusing on producing predictable profits and cash flow. So for a business to do this, a business needs strong leaders. They need productive and loyal employees. They need recurring revenues. They need strong margins above industry norms. They need to be reporting on KPIs that drive and monitor performance. They need strong documented sales and operating processes that can be learned and implemented quickly with minimal disruption. And they need highly satisfied customers. Okay. First step. Once that's been accomplished, now we move. The question then becomes, how do I manage? How do I harness all these profits and cash flow to create predictable and sustainable revenue growth, right? And for this, you're going to need to have, as a business, a strong strategic mission, vision, and strategy that's powered by a strong culture that is aligned to that mission and strategy. You're going to have to be able to recruit and retain more employees to grow the business. You got to be in growing markets. You got to start competing on value and not on price to increase your margins and drive growth. You need to have a process for producing new leads. You need to be able to forecast your revenues. And finally, you need to be committed to finding new and better ways to compete in the marketplace. In other words, you need to be doing R&D. Okay. Once you get through that process, you move over to the right. Now that you've done all this, now you have to, if you're thinking about selling your business, even to an outside third-party buyer or to the next generation, now you want to wrap this business up in a bow, and you want to be able to present it to the next owner. And in order to do this, you got to have a strategic business story. You got to have accurate financial records that are creditable. Your legal house needs to be in order. You got to be growing faster than your peers with a dominant market share, with a strong brand, and with a broad customer base that you can defend. Okay, so research has shown that best-in-class companies are firmly in control of all these gears, and they've developed practices and prioritized action plans to achieve extraordinary business performance, which is a necessary element for business succession. The next element, moving on, and we talked a little bit about this in the business performance section, is strategic planning. Okay? Every business needs to have a strategic plan for the future. And strategic planning is a fundamental business activity that actualizes your vision and confirms the direction of your company. Okay? This planning provides an environment for you, the owner, for your partners and your managers to evaluate and articulate your core values, your priorities, your resources, and to achieve commitment towards your common goals. When you do this well, the strategic planning process lays the foundation for aligning expectations throughout the organization and translates a business owner's motivation and perspective into long-term objectives, and action plans. So strategic planning, another essential element to succession planning. Let's talk about leadership and management continuity. Next, we need to focus on leadership and management continuity, right? Business succession is not, just like planning for it, is not a solo endeavor. Family members, partners, shareholders, directors, distributors, and franchisors rely on competent, motivated, and trusted managers to carry out the business's mission. Much of the value of your business is in your management's resourcefulness, commitment, enthusiasm, and teamwork. The identification, motivation, and retention of highly qualified supporting managers and the development of bench strength are essential to maintaining the viability of your succession plan. Therefore, as an owner, in order to achieve success, you must focus on the development and constant regeneration of a management culture that can sustain and enhance historical success. Next element here is management synergy and teamwork, right? Teamwork is critical in succession success simply because you cannot do it all yourself, right? The achievement of reasonable business goals is a formidable challenge through purely self-serving employees versus team members who have bought into your vision, mission, and goals. Business succession is a reasonable business goal that requires collaborative interaction to effectively address the diverse challenges of the independent factors of the succession matrix. The call for team synergy includes you, the owner, supporting family members, partners, successors, managers, employees, vendors, suppliers, and advisors. However, my experience is that teamwork is not necessarily a natural behavior among very competitive, ambitious, and aggressive parties that aspire to be recognized for their achievement. But team dynamics can be taught, supported, and ultimately embedded within the culture of your organization that are truly dedicated to high quality, high performance, and high customer satisfaction. By achieving teamwork, synergy is possible so that the gain achieved when individuals work together as a group exceeds productivity of an individual's effort. Next, we come to successor preparation, okay? Moving the business to and through the next generation requires available, capable, and competent, committed successors who will provide leadership through the transition. However, most business owners expect successors to identify and train themselves, make self-assessment of needed behavior and attitude modifications, withstand criticism and survive, and stand by patiently without any definite timeline. And as a result, successor candidates are generally not adequately prepared for ownership leadership and become frustrated. And this frustration has multiple negative consequences, including the decision to pursue alternate career paths, leaving the business owner with a few options. So you as a business owner, you must commit to first a successor identification process to evaluate, coach, and affirm successor talent. Through progressively increasing responsibility and accountability, successors have the opportunity to evaluate whether the organization fulfills their career goals and ownership has the opportunity to determine if the candidate has the potential for leadership. A deliberate and methodical identification process allows you and the chosen candidate to clearly identify strengths and weaknesses and confirm valuable and viable successors. And once you identify these successors, you need then to develop and put in place a successor development curriculum for each of these candidates tailored to their needs and goals. This curriculum is then referenced in quarterly performance reviews and refined no less frequently than annually as goals, skills, and abilities are progressively clarified and confirmed. Talk a little bit about family. Now we're getting into the family type owned businesses, and the issue then comes up here about family dynamics. Family dynamics can significantly influence the success or challenges of succession planning in a family-owned business. And here's why understanding these dynamics is crucial to your business if you're in a family-owned business. First of all, it's very important that you have effective communication among family members, whether they are actively involved in the business or not. Effective communication amongst family members is essential for maintaining unity and harmony when addressing succession issues. Disagreements or conflicts among family members can distract the leadership team and hinder their focus and commitment to the business. Also, be sensitive to family issues, the family dynamic issue, which sometimes family issues can take precedence over business decisions. If there are unresolved conflicts or tensions within the family, they can negatively impact and affect how the business is run and its overall decision making. Therefore, it is vital for you to address these dynamics early in the process. Also, having open and effective communication within the family helps prevent divisive behavior and fosters stronger relationships, right? When the family members understand each other's perspectives and concerns, it promotes collaboration and reduces the likelihood of conflicts impacting the business. Also, there's challenges in changing family patterns, right? Changing established family behaviors can be difficult and emotionally taxing. Resistance and fear of change are common when attempting to shift long-standing patterns of interaction. However, it's critical and crucial for you to work through these challenges to create more cohesive and more supportive family environment. And if you can navigate and overcome these issues, you can achieve remarkable unity, resilience, and synergy. This strength not only benefits relationships amongst the family, but also enhances the overall success of the business during and after the succession process. So in conclusion here, just to wrap this section up, as a business owner, you need to recognize the significance of family dynamics in succession planning if you're in a family-owned business, right? By fostering open communication and addressing family issues proactively, you can create a supportive environment that strengthens both family ties and business operations. This approach will help you and ensure a smoother transition and continued success for the family business. And lastly, the last issue here, if you're in a family-owned business, is family governance, right? Family governance is essential for ensuring that effective communication and collaboration among family members takes place. And here's what you need to be concerned about here. First of all, understanding your family's dynamics. Families come in different forms, including in-laws, cousins, children, stepchildren, business partners, and employees. So as an owner, it's critical for you to recognize these diverse relationships and dynamics that exists within your family. The next thing that's critical here in family governance is to create a structured form and a process for your family's communications regarding business and estate matters. These forms will help develop a unified vision for succession and build a strong business capable of thriving across generations. So, for example, some of the family business I deal with, they have regular family meetings or advisory boards that facilitate discussions around business strategy, goals, and succession planning. Very, very good keeping everyone together. Also, you have to be sensitive to the fact that operating a business involves many stakeholders, each of them passionate about their opinions and processes, plans, and priorities. It's important to manage these things, right? It's important to manage these differing perspectives to maintain harmony and focus. All right, so implementing a process for constructive feedback can help ensure that all voices are heard while keeping a focus on family objectives. Also, you got to be sensitive to the behaviors and attitudes of employed and inactive family members. They can either be an asset or liability to the business. Positive engagement can drive the business forward, while negative interactions can create conflict. Also, in this process of family governance, having good governance establishes clear boundaries and requirements for how family members interact with the business. This clarity helps minimize negative impacts from personal relationships on business operations. So I've seen some families develop a family constitution or governance policy that defines roles, expectations, acceptable behaviors for family members who are involved in the business. And after you do all this, you need to thoughtfully go through this, sit down with your family members, your key managers, and your advisors, and you should document. You should document the required behaviors and attitudes, the experience parameters for potential employment with the company, performance expectations, accountability measures, and a clear succession planning direction. So, in conclusion, in this section here, implementing effective family governance is crucial for sustaining family businesses through multiple generations. By fostering open communication, managing diverse opinions, establishing clear guidelines, you, the owner, can create a cohesive environment that supports both family relationships and business success. Okay, well, again, 42 minutes, not too bad. We'll leave some time for questions, but those are the 10 critical factors in the succession matrix. As you can see, there are many issues that must be considered in establishing a successful succession plan. And for this reason, I'm going to say again, I told you I'd reiterate this at the end. This process is a team sport. It requires the active collaboration and participation from all of your trusted advisors. And finally, early planning here is the key. Ideally, this planning should begin several years before you intend to retire or exit the business. This allows you to have ample time to develop a comprehensive plan, identify and groom potential successors, make any necessary adjustments to the business structure and performance. I will tell you here that time is your friend, okay? Time is your friend here. It allows you not only to do what I just said, but trust me, you're going to make mistakes. And giving yourself time allows you to recalibrate, step back, and to continue to move forward. So when you think about it, and I've thought about it, when you think about all this stuff around succession planning, really succession planning is really nothing more than good business planning. I mean, this is what a good businesses would do. I mean, it's good business planning. It should be made part of your everyday plan. It's not something that you just choose to start, at a certain point in your business lifespan. It's something that should be constantly paid attention to. It's just plain good business plan. Okay, well, I've talked enough. I'm out of breath. Thank you for your time. And I think we've left 15 minutes for any questions. So I'll be more than happy to stay on to take them at this point. But thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for a comprehensive presentation that would certainly lead to a less dramatic succession than we saw on the HBO show. For everyone watching, there is a Q&A button down at the bottom. So if you just want to put your questions in there, we can get to them one by one. Michael, I think the audience is still digesting for now because we don't have
Well,
anything in the Q&A just
well,
yet.
there's just a lot. There's a lot to cover here. Tried to do it at a very high level, but it's critical. I mean, people if they don't pay attention to this and they wait until the end and they start paying attention when they're mentally ready to do it, they often don't give themselves enough, as I point out at the end here, they don't give themselves enough time to really do it comprehensively, and they leave a lot of money on the table. And
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's
while we wait for questions from the audience, I mean, I guess on that note, I have a question of my own. Like,
sure.
what are the one or two most common problems that you see people fall into, pitfalls that people fall into of every, one of the the problems people run into in succession planning?
Well, I mean, regarding those 10 elements of the matrix itself, those 10 factors.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just in
Sure.
your experience with business
Yeah.
owners, like what do you just see most commonly that like, hey, it's low hanging fruit to avoid these common.
Well, I think the number one thing, well, I'll go not necessarily in this order, but a lot of folks do not do the personal financial planning part. They don't do it professionally. They don't put together. They don't have a comprehensive financial plan put together, which I think is very necessary because you need to know. You need to start with the end in mind, right? To use that phrase. So if I need to know if I'm going to leave, if I intend to leave this business in 10 years, you know, what is that going to cost me? What am I going to need to have when I walk away from the business? I'm not working there anymore. I'm not relying on it for my income anymore. What pot of money? I use that phrase. How much wealth do I need to have accumulate in order to sustain myself for my next act? And that's part of that whole financial planning process. You need to understand what that next act is going to be and what it's going to cost you. And then part of that also is how much of that uh, pot of money, if you will, that financial goal needs to be generated by your business. So that to me, a lot of people skip that. All right, they don't do that, and they just keep working and keep running their business. And when they're ready to retire mentally, they go to market and they cross their fingers and hope to get the most they can get. All right, so I encourage people, do not do that because you're shortchanging yourself. You need to have that view. So a lot of people don't give themselves that view. Um, the other thing that I see people neglect and not pay attention to is the business performance stuff, right? How do I make my company more valuable? You know, those 24, those three growth driving overall objectives, those three dimensions of business growth. It's very critical that people get a handle on them. Their businesses understand what they are, and they need to know where they stand on those things because that's going to have a huge impact on the business's ability to continue on to the next generation. Because if you're not going to sell to an outside third party, which focusing on that will help you do, if you're going to transfer it to your family or internal successors, you want to turn something over to them that's strong, that has strong cash flows and profitability, right? Because those folks are going to somehow they're going to use that cash flow to pay you or to continue to pay you or pay you for the business in some fashion. So it's important that you focus on those value drivers to sustain yourself to the next generation. And finally, the last thing is taxes, the state and income taxes, right? People don't focus on them until the end. I get a lot of folks calling me saying, "Hey, I just listed my business for sale. I have an LOI. How can I reduce my taxes now?" I go, "Well, gee, you're not giving me any time. You need to give yourself enough time to understand the tax implications of any proposed transaction down the road and how you can, structure your business. We talked about business structuring, how you can structure your business to minimize those taxes."
Again, thank you to the TTA for putting this on, and a big thank you to Michael for an awesome, informative, insightful presentation. The TTA will be sending out the recording of this presentation, and this episode will be released this coming Wednesday on the NEMT Experts podcast on Bambi's YouTube channel. I will be putting Michael DeSiato's contact information in the description of this video. Thank you once again.